The great power of photography is that it gives us a basis for finding common ground with people and events that we otherwise would never have been able to connect with.
Photography matters because it gives us information about the world, but in fact it's information about the world filtered through the lens and through the eye of an artist.
A great photograph for me is something that combines wonderful graphics and, most of all, powerful content.
The real question for me when I'm trying to decide what's a good photograph, it begins with, do I want to look at this photograph twice? Do I want to look at this photograph 3 times? Do I want to look at this photograph for 20 minutes? Do I want to have this photograph?
Photography is the mirror, in a sense, both yourself and, if you tilt it slightly, the world around you.
One of the reasons I've always been drawn to photography is because it's so accessible. Everyone knows how to read a picture. It's part of the currency of our culture.
People are always arguing whether it's art or whether it's not art.
Today, photography is taken much more seriously than it ever was.
People use cameras for all kinds of different reasons. There's portrait photography, industrial photography.
There's documentary photography, celebrity photography.
Medical photography, there's fashion photography.
There are people who photograph every meal they have. There are people who photograph every pet they've had.
Travel photography, there's sports photography.
Street photography, posed photography.
Photography made to further photography.
There can be so much in a photograph other than just a snapshot. There's a life in it. There's all kinds of moods.
Photographs and cameras are tools, and depending on who's holding the cameras and what they're doing with them, that's what art's about.
Well, my first serious thought of a career was as a still photographer. My first camera I bought for 35 cents in a hardware store, brand new at that. And I happened to have it right here. Not very big, as you can see. Just hold it up like this, and it has a shutter, and go like this. Click, click. I took this photograph from my brother. I must have been about 10 or so, and he was maybe 5 or 6. And now that my brother is gone 20 years, I look at that photograph. He's asleep somewhere. And there couldn't be a more appropriate photograph for me to remember him by. Well, you see, I started my life as a psychologist, and the central thing to being any kind of a scientist is to gather information in an unprejudiced fashion. Keep an open mind. I observe, I don't ask questions.
Half price, less than half price.
I don't exercise any control over what I'm filming. And so that carried over to my work as a photographer.
The question is, I bet you can't tell me how far the human eye can see.
Can I take a little shot of you?
Of course. Okay.
Yeah.
What's your name? My name is James Jones.
My name is Albert Maisels.
Pleased to meet you, Albert.
Yeah.
My buddy, you got me walking?
Yeah, I gotta get you walking.
Gotta get me walking.
Some of my best moments in movie making are when there's nothing happening. Maybe something's going on in the person's mind, but there's no movement and there's no sound. Those moments can be the most powerful in a whole film, which leads me to say the same of a still photograph. A still photograph is so powerful because there's no distraction from sound or movement, and you're with that photograph. Put it there, buddy.
How are you?
Good.
Comment ça va? Comment allez-vous?
Ça va bien.
Tu vas bien? Tu parles français?
Ah, un peu.
Un peu.
Oui. It was Robert Capa, I think, that said, in advising a young photographer, get close, get close. Getting close doesn't necessarily mean so many feet away, but getting into the heart and mind of the person that you're photographing. So what are you going to be when you grow up?
I don't know.
Huh? You got some
Whatever,
dream?
whatever
You have a dream? You have a dream?
Yeah. Just one day go to school, go to college and stuff. So for now, just save my money and then one day I'll be there.
Just a minute. I want to get a shot of you.
A shot of me?
Yeah. Oops. Put it there, buddy.
God bless
Great,
you, son.
great. You see how easy it is to talk to people.
How are you?
Good, how are
I've
you?
been living in this neighborhood for the last 15 years.
Yeah, I just moved here.
You did?
Yeah,
You're gonna like it here.
I love it.
You're
That's
a clown.
nice. That's nice.
You're a clown. Well, there's no way you're gonna be able to pass by me without a hello from now on, right?
Put it there. Oh, beautiful. This is one of my first photographs in Russia at the airport. People sleeping on their luggage as they're waiting for the plane. It's nice the way this little figure here completes the composition. So much more interesting than if I just cut it off here. There's a guy sleeping on the edge. The photographs that I took were just for the fun of it. Interestingly enough, I think that's probably the best motivation. Wasn't to make money, it was just to satisfy my need to record that moment, largely of my kids. And of all the photographs I've ever taken, I think that if I had to select only one, it would be this one. It's so mysterious, such a magic moment. It's a perfect example of what can happen when you just let things happen. Totally by chance, the light was just right. The background kind of steamy. Yeah. Hi. What's your name? What's your name? What's your name? What's your name? Anna?
Edna.
Edna. Can I take your picture? Ah, beautiful.
Ask him what his name is.
Ask me my name.
What's his name?
I can tell you. It's Al. Al, can you say Al? Al. Hi. Bye-bye.
Bye. Take care.
See this one? Look at this one. I'm very happy with what we got. They were curious about me and I about them. You look at them and they look back at you, so to speak. Beautiful form of communication. It's when you're picking the camera up and putting it down that they see that face of yours. You're seeing each other eye to eye, and that's the time to establish a kind of rapport of trust and empathy. Each time they look at you, they hopefully see a person who's accepting and kind, a person they can trust. So they just go back to being themselves. One mistake is to be so obsessed with the technique as to miss the human factor.
My name's Andrew Moore. I'm a large format color photographer. 40 by 50 is the size I really prefer. It physically relates to the body. It's almost like a window, and one can kind of just enter into the photograph that way. I mean, I love the fact that you can still see lights on in the building. That'll probably last another half hour, 45 minutes. Want to try it? Okay, let's do it. In the shot, we're looking across the municipal building and then looking towards downtown. I love this. It's, I think, McKinney and White, turn of the century, very Roman Empire. Let's see if we can go upstairs. Ma'am, what's your name? We're permitted for 2 spots, but also on the other side. There we go. Ooh, it's a little wet. Okay, we're going to wait for a second and see if it clears a bit, okay? Waiting to meet the right person, waiting for the guy with a key to show up, waiting for a phone call, waiting for the weather. Patience is a big part of what I do, waiting for the light. I'm interested in places that express a sort of life. Just as a person has, different periods of their life, a building or a place has different periods and goes through different phases. It's actually beginning to clear. You can see there's some light patches over here. So I think this bit of heavy rain is going to stop in, 10, 15 minutes. It would be great if we get some sunlight streaking across with this dark sky. It's actually, shooting after it rains is one of the best times to photograph because you have these dark skies and you can have very dramatic lighting. So we're ready to go. I think this is going to be great. Okay, so this was sort of the view I had in mind. Where's Miles? They got lost. This should work okay. Let's go forward. Oh my God, look at that, that's great. Okay, let's get some film ready, get the meter out, give me the cable release as well. The light's amazing. We should shoot like right now. Okay, I'm gonna guess the exposure's like 22 and a half, maybe at an eighth or something. Oh, nice. Fantastic, okay. Okay, everything's good. Everything's good. It's a little windy. Hold still. Okay. This idea of time stretched out. But I'm interested in the emotions that creates. It's a kind of soulfulness, maybe, of the place, of the architecture. This is one of my favorite places in all of Cuba, in all of Havana, really, to shoot. This is the Campo Amor Theater. What you see here is just the process of neglect and apathy. It's not as though there was a fire or anyone vandalized the space. It just slowly fell apart. But what I liked about it was that the fact that the roof had kind of opened up and what had been an architectural theater had become a kind of work of sculpture, in a sense. The architecture was sort of freed, in a way, once it became a ruin, that it was still in use. So here you can see bicycle cabs and motorcycles, so it's a garage for these things. And then up on this balcony level, there are people living, and you can see laundry up here. So the whole building, it's a ruin, but it's still in use. So I'm looking for places that have this kind of intense historical moment where all these things are happening at the same time. This is Palace Square in St. Petersburg, site of the Bolshevik coup in 1917. This large scheme and this small character. The viewer actually becomes that person. So we're looking right up Center Street. That kind of leads you into the middle of the picture. You have these buildings on the edge of the frame, and then you have this very dramatic sky, and then the light and the towers of Midtown with the light on them. So cool. Now it's 8 at 11 and a half. We're losing it. Super dramatic light. Done. This is what it's all about. Just being in a great spot and then letting the light happen and then just being spontaneous and responsive to that. I'm not saying that's as good as it gets, but that was pretty amazing. One way to get better as a photographer is to use a manual camera. Because if you use a manual camera, you can understand the relationship between, let's say, the f-stop and the shutter speed. You'll never be able to understand those basic relationships by using an automatic camera. But ultimately, the camera is the least important part of taking the picture. It's really what's in your head. Part of being a professional is for your mind to be prepared for when the moment strikes.
Like, I'm not even aware of the scale of the production, or I'm not even aware that it's odd. I'm not particularly comfortable with holding a camera. I never hold cameras. This is how I make pictures. In a way, it's the only way I know how to make a picture. Like a film, I use a lot of production, a lot of lighting, a lot of set design. There's two quite contrasting ways that I work. One is on location, and then the other is on a soundstage. When we work on location, I will drive around looking through neighborhoods, location scouting in a sense. We start to put together a lighting plan, and then the location manager has to start, working with the city, and this starts a whole long process. It's a very different process when we work on soundstage because I'm not really responding to a location. I'll start working with my art director, and then we'll start making sketches and then architectural drawings, and then we'll start building the sets, and then we'll have like 5 weeks on a soundstage, and we usually will make 5 or 6 pictures. A huge shifting point was when I first met my director of photography, Rick Sands. He opened up for me an enormous possibility in terms of how to choreograph light in a way that I don't think any other photographer does. It's finding meaning through light. I'm always interested in tensions. A primary one is that collision between the familiar and the strange. I think that exists in all of my pictures, an unexpected sense of mystery or strangeness or beauty. My interest in that tension comes out of a very particular place, and that's the fact that my father was a psychoanalyst. When I was young, his office was in the basement of our house. I had all these early memories of attempting to try to hear what was going on under the surface, underneath our living room. And I think that, in retrospect, is a great metaphor for what I do now. This picture was part of a production that we did over 5 weeks of winter. We worked in cooperation with the town and had an agreement that they would just shut down the entire main street of Pittsfield and just let the snow gather.
This is snow we can never duplicate, this is the real deal. So far we think we got 4 inches. We have 1 hour.
The picture's residing on this thing that almost doesn't exist, like this moment in between moments. The first thing I had to think of is what would be the title of a movie that I would want on the marquee. I settled finally on Brief Encounter, and then a single car rounding a snowy street, and then the tracks of the car appearing behind it.
I'll get rid of it in post.
And then I wanted some other sort of disconnected figures. So there was a figure in the diner, and then I put a figure underneath, walking away from us in the movie theater.
Basically, I say position, and then you just hold it. It's like a second exposure, and then I say hold, and then relax, and you relax, and then a little bit more up. Yeah, perfect.
And I thought between that triad, I was hoping that there would be the suggestion of some kind of inverted narrative or something.
Clear frame. Okay, here we go. Okay, position. And hold. Relax.
I feel like I go through this enormous process to make a way of making a picture that feels distinct, that feels like it's from a particular world. There's problems and there's issues and then complications and then more problems and more issues, and then there's these moments of grace. You know, there's these beautiful moments that for me make everything worth it. You know, everything worth it. It's like really what I live for is sort of when everything becomes aligned and I'm standing in front of a subject and it all comes together to create a perfect world. And that's what it's all about for me.
This is it. Susie, this is it. Final exposure. Position. And hold. And that is a wrap. Perfect photograph.
Every artist has like a single story to tell. Over the course of a lifetime, really, the artist continually goes back to that internal story and attempts over and over again to try to project that story outward. So in other words, be honest to your own vision. You know, make it meaningful.
Now, you should stand just the way you were before.
Yeah.
No, you were on the other side.
Oh, okay.
But don't look over there. Look at me. Just the way you stood when you came. It was like an American Gothic. I had a camera, an Agfa box camera that my father gave me when we were in Austria. And we left Hungary, and I was pretty homesick, and my father bought at a pawn shop a little box camera, an Agfa box. I took it with me on a ski trip. Pretty dark. And I took a picture. The first picture I remember as a picture is a black goat on the white snow.
How long have you had that camera?
I don't know. Long time. Well, you can tell a lot about a person when you take their picture. Or you can tell a lot about yourself. Well, I'm done with this roll. It's probably all blurry, but it's worth the gamble. Here I am when I was 13 and left Hungary. My father took that picture with that same Agfa box. He took a very good picture, actually. A photograph, for me, is something I feel rather than see. I'm interested in what is beyond the surface, what is in the corners, what is underneath. It's like being in water, because water connects much more than air. And I love to swim. Okay. It is a sort of hidden ghost world that you look for, that I look for. Not everybody. And there are perfectly great photographers who don't look for it, but I think almost all great pictures have ghosts in them. When we left Hungary, I wasn't ready to leave, and it was after the Hungarian Revolution. And so I used to go back and visit after I could and take pictures in my heads. And this is my girlfriend, Lulu. And this is the room we played in when we were children. And you see the dove in the corner? And this is my mother in this room. Soon after my father died, I think it was. It's very hard to talk about these things. That's why I'm a photographer, so I don't have to talk about them. Now you can make all the plans you want and the circumstances will be completely different. But I know what I would like to get if I could get it. It's that little piercing little person.
She wanted to photograph me. So I said, yeah, great, I love it.
And after all these years of living in one place, you could just pick up and do it again. That is amazing.
You have to be careful, we have 2 cats.
Hello, kitty. Sit down there.
Sure.
Get into that light. But try to get inside it. More into the sun. Where is that sun?
How's that?
There. Might be too much, but it's interesting. I'll come around. Wow. So here is Basquiat, which was taken for an assignment. This is Don King. The other photographers already had the spots in the front, so I walked around and happened to see that. And it's very often what's behind something that's more interesting. I'm not so much interested in photographing reality and a document of something. I'm more interested in finding a meaning, finding an essence. If you move your head just a tiny bit, there. I use a lot of cameras because every camera fits a certain situation and each camera takes different pictures. And I often say that it's not the camera, it's you, but it is what kind of camera you're drawn to that matters. That's very different. Every time the light changes and you change and people come in the room, look in there. It's all different. Nice. So I can't decide which one I like. And just like I can't decide what I want to photograph. It could be anything. I'd love to see the garden. Oh, there's the mirror. We can check ourselves. Oh, very good. And there we are. We'll take a double portrait. Should I show my face?
Sure.
I don't know how. Very sweet. 2 people with glasses.
Yeah.
It's really a miracle when you do get a great picture. I mean, I can take a good picture, but to take a great picture happens very rarely. More like finding a treasure in a rummage sale. And I like this because they look like people. They look like uppity people discussing that I don't know what they're discussing, whether I'm wearing the wrong shoes or not. They look very uppity. I think in general, all the pictures that I take or most photographers take have themselves in the picture. This is what I truly consider my self-portrait on a bad day. And this is the book I did, I guess, a year and a half, 2 years ago it came out. And it's called Self-Portrait with Cows Going Home. The title came from this picture, which, see, this is the picture. Here I am in the reflection. That's the self-portrait. And here are the cows going home. So that's what I mean about self-portrait with cows going home. Oh, and also the cows go home every night. And I was returning to Hungary after having been away for a long time. Here is a little thing I wrote about the cow. Here it is. At sundown in small villages all over Eastern Europe, cows, their udders full, return home from the meadows. Their hoofs clip-clop on the pavement like voluminous women in heels. When they find a house they belong to, they move.
What did you think?
Oh, I was very happy. I was very happy with the light and happy with my subject. I always hope for the best, but you never know. Things can happen. I have a good feeling, though. You kind of have to get into a mood or a zone, and I think I'm influenced by novels that I read or music. I like poetry. Just respond to the world the unique and only way that you can. And that's the most important thing. If you are true to yourself, then you will have the kind of pictures that you would be happy with.
My name is Timothy Greenfield Sanders. I'm a photographer, a filmmaker, a grandfather now, everything. I've been taking portraits for 30 years, I think. Musicians, architects, politicians, lately porn stars, the world of culture in America in the last 50 years. Watch your step here. I shoot with an 11 by 14 antique view camera. In a way, it makes my pictures look like mine. I've kind of created a weird camera with a sort of a strange lens, and all these things add up to be a Timothy Greenfield Sanders portrait. Almost always in a studio, lit from one side with one light. It's very minimal. This is an archive of every photograph I've ever taken. Probably 6,000 people by now. Let's try here. Ethan Hawke, H-A-W, Dennis Hopper. I was in film school back in the 70s at the American Film Institute. There's Hitchcock. You'd see, every film by Ingmar Bergman or Truffaut or Spielberg, and then that person would come sit with us. And I started to take portraits of these people, and I learned portraiture that way. I mean, literally, Alfred Hitchcock told me my lights were in the wrong place and invited me to the studio to introduce me to his lighting experts, and I learned that way. He was wonderful to me. And 1763. Every year I take my children's portraits on their birthday or around their birthday. So this is birthday week. Iska Greenfield Sanders' birthday, 1092. 15 years ago today, pretty much. So we'll see how she's changed. Isn't that great? That's Lily in 1992, so she was 11. And Iska would have been 14. And then my mother, oh, how interesting, wow. My mother, my father, oh, my mother and father. Hello, kiss, kiss, and there's baby.
I think as a kid it was really fun to be photographed, and it sort of gave me a certain presence, knowing, what I looked like and what it, how you sort of present yourself. And then I'm sure there were years where I was annoyed by it and didn't want to be photographed. But then ultimately, having, a really beautiful formal portrait approximately on my birthday every year is something that, no one else has. I mean, it's just such an incredible way to look at your life. And, and he'll appreciate it someday, too. Yeah.
Clearly has an opinion on it already, though.
Okay. You're fine.
This is going to make the baby look very fat, these horizontal stripes. Hold that, Mark. 2/3. Okay. Just the way you are is perfect. Your elbow's the side, and that's it. Right? Ready, Sebastian? And I'm waiting for him, so look right here. Okay, let's take a look at that. This is a 8 by 10 Polaroid processor. It's a wonderful way to kind of see that what you've got is good. You can see your lighting, you can see your composition. In a way, it's the great thing about digital photography is the same thing as this, that you can see right away your mistakes and learn from them. And then there we are. And you guys can come over here if you want. There's Hudson's first official portrait.
I love it.
I strive to bring out the best in people. I think some photographers try and bring out the worst in people because that's a particular look that's, shocking. And I don't do that. I really am interested in people's dignity and in their kind of specialness. So in a way, I'm looking for that quality that you see in yourself when you really feel good about yourself. And that's the key to a great portraiture, I think. That's great. That's wonderful. I love that one.
That's great.
Yeah. Oh. Here, he looks almost like Madonna and Child. It's celestial. It just, everything is really the way you'd want it. It's wonderful.
You're good, Dad.
I'm good. Yeah, I'm good. Karen, can you come down for your birthday portrait, please? What a great idea. Good. Here we go. Slightest little warmth, but not smiling. Ready? At the lens, everyone. Good. Look at that. That's actually fabulous. I think the baby looks better in the first one. We're going to take a portrait today of Patrick McAlone. So there's Patrick in 1989. He went to school with my older daughter. His father contacted me and said that he was getting out of the Army in a few weeks and that they wanted to have his portrait done by me again in and out of uniform. Patrick is someone who I have a history with, so it's easier, and I'm of course very interested in his experience. He's been in Iraq. There are a million questions to ask him. On the other hand, you don't want to really ask him that because you don't know what that's going to trigger. This is this series of soldiers that I've been shooting who have been injured in George Bush's war. This is Dawn holding her arm. John, with 2 legs missing. Brian, triple amputee. I think when I'm taking a portrait, the first thing I look for is to make someone comfortable and to go out of my way to make it seem like it's nothing. That it's, oh, we're just going to sit right here, it's real simple. All the little things that I say are actually very calculated. How are your parents doing?
They're doing very well. They're about to go to Buenos Aires for a couple of weeks.
Really? Come on over here. So let's see your arms folded. We don't have to be exact, but that's great, like that. And your head was sort of a little this way. Yeah, chin a little this, that's it, like that. And come down slightly with it. That's beautiful. Just stay like that. Ah, movie star. That's good. We think you should go to Hollywood, Patrick. We're endlessly fascinated by faces because we think it's going to tell us something. And it's going to tell us something either about ourselves or about someone else. Really, we're interested in people. A little bit more space there. That's it. Tiniest bit of warmth there. Wonderful. Wow, that's great. You're done. Good. You're done. That's fabulous. Thank you. Amazing. Wow. I think the hands are just wonderful there. Yeah. There are critics of my work who say, well, he takes the same picture over and over again. And I probably would agree that that's very likely true to some extent, but I think it's a very important picture to take. And in a way, if you look back years from now, you're going to look back at my pictures of the people who made a difference in the 50 years that I was shooting them. My pictures are the documentation, in a sense, of our world. And I hope that they're decent pictures. But in the end, everything's a document of another time. Is that too philosophical? When you look at the life of a photographer, it's kind of filled with moments like this where you're meeting interesting people all the time. So I'm very lucky that way. My days are fascinating. Everyone has at least one good angle. It's just a turn of the head. You need to look for that. You should find a subject or a group of people that you have an interest in because you're going to be more involved. For me, it was the art world. I cared about these people. I was interested in what they had to say. I was interested in their work. You want to get up in the morning and enjoy what you do.
If you're a good photographer, the eye of the viewer becomes the eye of the photographer.
Everyone knows what it's like to take a picture, and everybody knows what it's like to be the subject of a picture.
I realized that through photography, I could discover the world as I can discover myself.
In a way, when you take photographs of people, you give them immortality. They live forever. They last forever. People will know who they are 200 years from now.
I think what's interesting about today is that there's just a billion times more images today than there were, even 30 years ago.
We really sort of see ourselves through our past. They're all we have. They're our memories.
I can well imagine a family, rich or poor, they have an album of photographs, snapshots that they've taken over the years of the family. That if their house is burning down, the first thing that they want to save is that book of photographs.